You're listening to Fresh Hope Today, episode 111, Randy's Story. Hello, my friend, and welcome to Fresh Hope Today. I'm Brad Hoefs, your host. Our purpose here at Fresh Hope Today is to encourage you to live a faith-filled, rich, and full life in spite of having a mental health diagnosis. And we do it from a peer-to-peer perspective. Each of us today on the program, we both have a diagnosis, but we're living a full and rich life, and that's what we want to help you to come to find out how to do and to be about. One of the things that's a major thing for us in Fresh Hope is to understand that in spite of having whatever diagnosis it might be, it is possible, and in fact, it's pleasing to the Lord that we would live a full and rich life. Many times, a diagnosis can be very crippling, and sometimes the actual disorder that we have is extremely crippling, but it is possible to live well to varying degrees, varying ways. Now, one of the diagnoses that a lot of people would consider very serious to have when it comes to mental illness, it seems like a lot of people are, when you say, I have bipolar disorder, it's like, and they become a little bit concerned. Or the other one, of course, is schizophrenia. I have a guest with me that I met, I think, last fall for the first time, and I've been so impressed with him. He's a man who is living very successfully, managing, you could say, walked through the fire with the diagnosis of schizophrenia. And so, Randy, I'd like to welcome you here to the Fresh Hope Studios today.
Thank you, Brad. It's good to be here.
You are a guy that is, as normal, everyday guy as they come.
Well, thank you.
You have a wife and children, and you want to tell me about them?
Yeah, I have my wife I've been married to for 16 years, and we have a great marriage. I have two boys, one 14 and one 10, and they're both good kids.
So you have a job.
Yes, I do.
And you've been working at it how long?
About 18 years, and
Wow.
My wife stays home. I support the family.
Wow. Now, did you have this job before you had a diagnosis?
I did. I left for a few years and
Came back.
I came back. They hired me back. They really don't know about my illness.
Sure.
But
Sure. Well, it's not necessary to tell them, I wouldn't think. Now, you told me something before we started recording this morning that I had, if I knew it, I had failed to remember it, but you're a Marine.
Yes, I was in the Marine Corps before I was diagnosed.
Sure. How long did you serve?
6 years.
Wow. So you were, what do they call it, full-time Sixers?
No, I was actually in the reserves, and we were activated for Desert Storm.
Oh, wow. So you fought over in Iraq?
No, I didn't.
No, okay. Thank you for serving our country.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah. I just want to be very clear with our listeners today. This is a man who has a job, works full-time, and is this the same job then, as you said, that you had prior to the diagnosis and you've had through your journey to where you are today?
Yes, I actually left the job for a short time and was diagnosed with my illness while I was at another job, and I kind of, with everything that was happening.
The stress of changing jobs and...
it was a stress of a newborn baby in the house.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that journey. You were in the Marines, you got married, and a baby was born. And is this the first time any kind of issue showed up for you?
Yes, it was. I lost a lot of sleep, and I think that's what triggered.
Yeah, it got the brain chemistry just tilted enough to... Those babies can really rule the house from their cradles, can't they?
Yeah, you don't get much sleep the first 6 months.
Yeah, but it's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
So what happened? Tell us what happened. What What brought you to the point of finding out you had a diagnosis?
Got to the point where I was delusional and people were after me and I was reacting to it and actually at work, and got to the point where I quit my job, and then home life just became impossible. And I ended up, my family got me into the hospital. Actually, through court system.
Okay. Yeah.
I wasn't willing to go. I didn't think I was sick.
Now, when you say that you were delusional, were you having thoughts that somebody was listening, somebody was doing something, or?
Yeah, excuse me. People were trying to poison me. I was thinking people were after me. I wouldn't sleep. I began to think, big conspiracy theories that would come out of my illness.
Sure.
It would just continue to build until the point where it makes your life unmanageable.
Now, many times when people hear about schizophrenia, they think immediately everybody hears voices. Did you hear voices?
My biggest thing was delusions, thinking, and they were always terribly destructive delusions.
Okay.
That people were doing things, plotting after me. I think I may have had some situations where I had hallucinations and maybe some hearing some voices, but they were so realistic that
it was hard to know whether you had really heard them or not. Yeah.
I can just look back and see some things where, that doesn't seem right, and I kind of think maybe I had some.
Sure. And it was probably even hard to trust the people that even you knew loved you.
Yes, I wouldn't trust my wife or any. I got to the point where I trusted no one.
So you ended up through the court system being hospitalized, and then what happened?
I got out. It's a real problem with the court system and mental illness because they want to prosecute you, and so that was a real struggle. I finally got back to work, struggled through the medication changes, and
sure.
I was lucky that I got back to work where people knew me.
Yeah. So you went back to the prior job.
Right. And that was just a blessing.
Oh, I would think so, because that would be like going back home.
Yeah, and it was almost like a bad dream, the other job.
In more ways than one, right?
Yeah.
Now, how old was your baby along in this process?
He would have been just about one, I think. When I started back to my original job.
So you started back at the job, and you had been diagnosed in the hospital with schizophrenia at that point, or what did they think?
They said it was schizophrenia. I totally denied it. I did not agree with them. I thought these things were really happening, and
that they just couldn't see it, or
they just didn't believe me. It was just too bizarre for them to believe.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Now, did you start to receive medications at that point then?
I did, and for the first few years, I was not taking them like I should have, and that really hindered on my recovery.
Now, did you take oral medicine, or with schizophrenia, I know that people can receive injections?
Well, they usually receive the injections if they're not good at taking their medication.
Okay.
And I was taking it, or at least telling my doctor I was.
Okay.
So, and I'd start cutting it back, and then I would think, well, it's a situation I was in that made me.
Right. I just was lacking sleep. It was a situation.
And well, if things that I thought, these delusions were happening to somebody else, well, wouldn't they react this way?
And so you quit taking it ultimately, or?
I went back and forth for a few years. Finally, I started taking it and got to the point where I was doing well, and I was doing so well that I thought I didn't need it anymore.
Okay, so you kind of took it, and then you started taking it regularly, got to doing so well that you thought you didn't need it.
Right.
Okay.
And that actually happened twice.
Oh, okay.
2 times.
And it's not all that rare, unfortunately, for any of us with a mental health diagnosis. But
well, you don't want to admit that you have the illness. Yeah. I always thought the medicine was making me feel the things that my illness was, if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about that. Say that to us again.
Well, you think you feel all these, depression or whatever, and you think, well, it's just the medicine making me feel that way. And well, that's really the illness, because we don't understand. You hear schizophrenia, and you think of what hits the headlines and what's in.
Oh, I know.
What's in Hollywood, and it's nothing like that.
Yeah, yeah. So you stopped taking your medicine at that point? This happened
the
to
first time I stopped taking my medicine. I actually was having some side effects, and I was doing so well that the doctor thought, well, maybe you're okay. Maybe we can take you off the medicine. So they weaned me off the medicine.
Oh, this was with doctors' help?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a doctor's help because I was doing so well.
Right.
Some people do seem to get off their medication and live normal lives. But it's a very few percentage. So we tried that, and I ended up in the hospital and at a really low spot in my life.
Now, were you experiencing depression at that time? All of this,
I think the delusions are so strong. You blame everything on the delusions. If you were, it's situational. You know, so you blame your depression, you blame your anxiety on the situation you think you're in. Once
that happened, then you got out and took your medicine faithfully until today, right? I think you said you twice.
Yeah, it happened twice. But I got out, and I actually came to know the Lord when I was at my lowest point.
In the hospital?
In the hospital.
So sometimes the Lord allows just terrible things, but the good that he brings through it is amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I was at my humblest point and lowest point. God just seems to scream to you. It was miraculous, just the way.
Tell us just a little bit about that.
Well, I was at my lowest point. I'd met a Christian a year prior to that, and I left my Christianity, and I met someone that I knew was a Christian. You meet a lot of people, and you think, well, they're no different than me.
Right.
But this was a disciple of Christ, that I met. He encouraged me to seek God, and I hadn't, I wasn't going after Jesus, but I was seeking God.
Did he know that you were having difficulties with mental illness or not?
Oh, no, he had no idea.
Okay, cool.
He had no idea. So he shared his testimony with me, which was quite powerful, the way he had changed his life and God had changed his life. So I thought, well, there's something there, I mean, if there is a God, I need to follow him. I need to reach out for him. I need to learn to know him because he made me, So for the next few years, I would try to, get rid of my sin and pray to get rid of my sin. Ask. Sometimes I would pray in Jesus' name, and I'd say, well, I'm not really sure it's Jesus.
Yeah, you're there, Jesus.
Yeah. So I would apologize to God, and it was very genuine prayer. My sins started receding, and I just felt like I was getting closer to God. And when I was in the hospital, I had a delusion that my wife was in trouble and all these things were happening. And so I was praying to God about that he would help me with the situation. And it turned into, what's your name, God? What I don't know who you are. And in that situation, he just revealed himself to me,
There's some who are listening who might become very concerned at this point, either in your testimony or with what I'm about to say. But I find it very curious and interesting that in the medical model for mental health, if anything smacks of the Lord speaking to someone or the Lord, quote unquote, revealing himself to them, that is part of the delusion. That's part of the issue. That's part of the illness. And I find it rather interesting because God can use anything, and he can break through even delusional thinking. He can break through. Now, that's not to say everything we think we heard, or whatever. But the Holy Spirit still has power and authority over all illnesses in our bodies. And isn't it interesting that in the midst of some delusional thinking, you start praying? and Jesus answers the prayer.
Right.
That's amazing when you think about it. If you're listening today and you're going, I just pray. Sometimes I'm not saying that fixes everything, but to seek the Lord, to say, Lord, I need you.
And I think especially with anxiety that God just seems to, when you give the problem to God, he just kind of takes it off your shoulders.
Yeah. Isn't that something? Yeah. So you came to know him, and then you got out of the hospital, and tell me what happened after that.
I got baptized.
Okay, good for you.
And I learned that if I give my problems to Christ, it's like a burden off my shoulders. Even when I was at my lowest point, I would pray. It helps. It really does. It's just being in a situation where you can't do anything, and only God can help you.
Yeah. What do they say? When I hit rock bottom, I found out that he's the rock at the bottom.
Yeah.
Now, when you would pray, when you were at your lowest and you would pray, did you tell God, did you spend a lot of time thinking about your situation and telling him about it? Or did you focus on him solving it?
I actually praised him for where I was.
Oh, my word, yeah. I could have added that one, but I guess I figured, well, that would be amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah, I would thank him that basically for my illness, that it brought me to my knees.
And it brought you to him.
100% in front of God, and for no other reason but to be close to God.
They say that, when you look at Paul in prison and they praise God and the walls come down, and I've heard it said that praise in the pits of despair is your ladder out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sounds like that's exactly what happened for you. So you came to know him, your prayer life and all of these things were all together. The journey of recovery for you was really knitted together between taking your medicine, doing what you needed to do, but also prayer and leaning on the Lord. Is that correct?
That's definitely true.
Okay. That brings us to today, and you're part of a Fresh Hope group here in our area. That's how I came to know you and come so far, and I know that you're helping people in Fresh Hope. They're encouraged just by hearing your story, because so often schizophrenia is that really dreaded diagnosis,
Right, and we need people to come to Fresh Hope that are there for not just their benefit, but the benefit of others.
Absolutely.
And the fellowship of others.
Yeah.
I find the most godly people at Fresh Hope sometimes.
Yeah.
That have the best relationships with God.
The thing that I found in the group that you're part of, that when I was part of it, I found fascinating was how another couple who are parents of a young man who has issues with schizoaffective disorder with psychosis and things like that, how encouraged they were just to see you every week. You didn't even have to talk. It was just, oh, Randy's here. And when you weren't there, they were always like, is Randy okay? Where's Randy at? Yeah, isn't that something? Now, how many years have you lived? Without having to go to the hospital, without any episodes or...
Actually, it hasn't been that long. It's only been maybe a year and a half or 2 years.
Well, that's good. That's great, though.
But it was because I quit taking my medication. That's the only reason.
Yeah, if you take it and you continue to take it faithfully, God heals in all sorts of ways.
Yeah.
And you take it if you had cancer.
When I was in the hospital the last time, I just refused to take the medication in the hospital, and luckily it was a place where they didn't force you to take it. And so I got to the point where things got really weird, and I was in different reality.
So you
and I was begging
then
for my medication. I knew at that point that it was a medication that was keeping me stable. It wasn't anything else.
Yeah. How's your life today?
Oh, it's good. Good. Simple, but good. I like to keep it simple.
I think more of us need to keep our lives simple. Sometimes we stress ourselves out. It doesn't matter whether you have a mental health challenge or not. I see it all the time as a pastor with people coming into my office to talk. Okay, so your life is good, going well. What do you wish you would have known early on at the very beginning when you got your diagnosis, or that you had realized and done differently?
Well, I wish I would have realized that I had the illness, that I would have, because I just didn't think I had it. I thought all these delusions were real, and no one knew what they were talking about. And I just wish that I wish there was a test you could take that showed that, you have this illness.
Yeah, pull out a little brain juice and do a test on it.
Exactly.
So you wish that you would have come to terms with it after the diagnosis or even before. Anything else?
Yeah, I wish I would have took my medication.
Yeah.
I was thinking I knew more than the doctors did about my medication.
Sure.
And there comes a point where after years and years of taking the medication, you do kind of know what works for you more than your doctor does.
Sure.
Because they don't feel the effects, and it's important that you communicate openly with your doctor.
Mm-hmm. How important do you feel it is who your doctor, or the importance of your doctor as part of your recovery? How do you feel about that?
I think the doctor makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody that will listen to your input and not just say, okay, you're this, you need this medication.
And you want the brightest and the best.
That's right.
Yeah. What might you share today with someone who has just been newly diagnosed with probably any kind of diagnosis, but then even more specifically with schizophrenia?
Well, with schizophrenia, I think it's important that you don't act on everything that you think, because that's what gets you in trouble. That's what gets you arrested or lose your job or lose your family or lose your life possibly.
Yeah.
That you just kind of don't react to everything right away.
Yeah.
Take your time on your decisions,
Would it be helpful to a person who has schizophrenia to have 2 or 3 people that when they're really in their right mind and they're doing well, to establish 2 or 3 people to give them some authority in their life to say, I'm going to always tell you the truth, and if your thinking is off, I'm going to tell you, and you're going to have to, or to give some person the power of attorney. I think there's a mental health power of attorney or something like that, which personally, having bipolar disorder, I think I should do that. But
yeah, I think that would be good. I don't know how acceptable you would be at that when you're in that state of mind, though, as far as giving somebody the power.
None of us.
It would be a good idea to do while you're thinking correctly.
One thing that's so frustrating with this is that when our brains work, we're in our right minds. We're good people. But your thinking gets off and your chemicals get off, and then all of a sudden everything's skewed. It's just kind of messed up. What about depending on the Lord for those who have a diagnosis?
That's, I think even for those that don't have a diagnosis, that's that's a way to live your life.
I like that. Yeah, that's right.
Because there's a lot of people that don't have the Lord, that don't have a mental illness, and they're dealing with not clinical depression, but a depression, and things like that, just because they don't have the Lord in their life.
I suspect that there are some folks listening today that are either parents of somebody who has schizophrenia, or somebody who is a wife or a husband or a daughter or a son, or someone who is just desperate for their loved one to come to terms with this and to do as well as you're doing. What hope can you give them today?
I think that everybody with an illness, a mental illness, needs at least, it doesn't take a team of people to bring them up, just one person. I had my wife, and that was it. I lost my friends and because of my illness. And my wife was there for me, and she was my rock at that point. I didn't have Christ as my rock, which I wish I would have.
What was it that she did that encouraged you?
She was my reality check. I would go to her and I would say, I was thinking this and this, and she would be honest with me and say, that's nonsense,
But she probably did it in a loving way, caring way?
She did, and I trusted her, she was there no matter how much I pushed her away. She was at least waiting by for me, and visiting me in the hospital, and I would not treat her the best because I might think that she was part of the conspiracy.
What would you say to to the loved one that is so much wanting recovery for the person that they love, that is the one thing that they could do. Maybe let's give them 3 things they could do, very specific things.
Okay. I don't know if they could educate them or not. That's if they could get them in a support group like Fresh Hope, that would be great. But it's really hard for the loved one to do. It takes the person with the illness to take the steps.
Because they can only do the recovery.
Right. Yeah. It's up to the person with the illness.
Well, it would seem, though, that the person who is the loved one could educate themselves as much as possible.
Oh, definitely.
I would think, too, they can pray.
Definitely.
The prayer will change more things than even the best of doctors can do. And the third thing is to take care of themselves.
Yes.
Who are loved ones, I have such great pain in my heart for those who are just hurting. And I've seen people just lose their own peace of mind, if you will, over it. And they're just so broken over their loved one's illness.
I definitely think I put my wife through more pain than I went through in my illness.
And I think what happens is when we have an episode or have had episodes and go through some strange, difficult, painful things, we're put on medicine and they're not.
Right. Exactly.
Some loved ones end up on medicine
that's
because
what I was
of it.
Say.
Yeah. Well, I really thank you to share today. I was wondering if you could just speak directly and pray for those who have a diagnosis today and their loved ones. If you could close us out with a prayer. I'm really grateful that you were here today. So if you wouldn't mind.
Father, I just want to pray for those today that are hurting. I pray that you be there for them in their time of need, that you make this incident something that brings them to reach out for you, that in their low spot they will reach out, Lord, and give themselves to you, and Lord, just take care of them. And I pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you. And by the way, if you want to know how normal this guy is, he rode in on a motorcycle this morning. What kind?
It's a Boulevard.
And he has a little helmet hanging off the back of the seat, I saw. Randy, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Brad.
We want to thank each and every one of you for listening. We hope that this program gave you hope. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions or a topic you'd like to cover or input, or maybe even become or get into contact with Randy himself. So you can email us at info@freshhope.us. And for more information, you can go to www.freshhope.us. We do have a book, and you might want to check it out. It's freshhopebook.com, or on Amazon. You can get it there. Thanks so much for listening. These podcasts are a joy to do because I get to know each of these people just a little bit more. And I'm going to tell you, I know a number of people who have the diagnosis of schizophrenia. None of the journeys are exactly the same. They never are. And that's what keeps it interesting, I suppose. But folks, that is not a death sentence. That is not you're going to have this and now you're terminally, chronically, mentally ill. No. There's hope. You can have a rich, faith-filled life as God allows, to varying degrees, and you can enjoy your life. You can have your life back. So until next time, this is Brad Hoefs, your host for Fresh Hope Today. God's richest blessings. This podcast has been a production of Fresh Hope Ministries. For more information, go to www.freshhope.us.